What a privilege it is today to be able to share with the pastors of the Catawba River Baptist Association. I appreciate all of you, my dear brothers, and the ministry for the Lord that you're doing right now in some very difficult times. I don't know about you, but for me, I was kind of glad to see 2020 in the rearview mirror, and I'm looking forward to 2021. However, the way this year is starting, it's certainly not going to be without its problems either. We're going to encounter those difficulties as we always do as we seek to serve the Lord. But I just appreciate all that you're doing to serve Him faithfully during these difficult times. I want to share a word of encouragement with you today from the Word of God, and then an application of that word illustrated by my own experience of how this verse was lived out in one particular occasion. I am so thankful, especially during times like now. I'm so thankful for Romans 8:28, aren't you? That verse says, "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord, for those who are the called according to His purpose." Wow, what a verse! And I'm so glad that that is in the Word of God, and especially in a time like this, I'm so glad that verse is there, and I claim that on a daily basis. I want to share just a couple of things about that verse with you. It just starts off, we know. This is something that we know because there it is in the Word of God, and we read the truth of it and we know it. But it's something that we also know because we experience it. We see the truth of it as we live it out in real life. And we know that all things, well, in the Greek, the words all things, it means all things. That's how all-encompassing this verse is. God is able to take all things and work them together for good for those who love God and those who are called according to His purpose. We qualify as both of those groups of people that God is working all things together for. We love the Lord, and we're the called according to His purpose. That has brought great comfort to me in ministry down through the years on numerous occasions. Let me share one of those times. Several years ago, I was pastoring a church in Greensboro just before I came here to Fruitland, and I was preaching Sunday mornings through the book of Jonah. And I was enjoying preaching through the book of Jonah. And then on Sunday nights, I happened to be preaching through the book of Joshua, which I also greatly enjoyed. But both of those are from books of the Bible that start with the letter J. Now, one of the things that can happen to you when you do that is you can inadvertently use one name for the other without even knowing that you did it. And there was one particular Sunday morning when I was preaching through the Jonah series, and I was really talking about the message about God's call upon Jonah's life and how he ran from that. And I don't know exactly why this happened. It may have been that I'd had a busy week and I was kind of tired going into the pulpit on Sunday morning, mentally kind of exhausted. I may not have slept well the night before. I'm not sure what all the factors were at play, but all I know is this. Several times in that message, as I preached about Jonah, I made a mistake and I said Joshua. I used Joshua's name instead of Jonah's name. Now, I think every time I caught it and I corrected it, but it happened 4 or 5 times, and it was kind of embarrassing to me. It happened so often. Well, I just finished the message that day and thought, wow, I hope that Sunday night will be better. I hope next Sunday morning will be better. But I just kind of laid that aside, and it's just one of those things we deal with in ministry from time to time. Well, the story continues. A couple of weeks later, on a Sunday evening, there was a young man by the name of Josh, His name was Joshua, but they called him Josh for short. And he came to our church, and he seemed to be very interested and engaged in the sermon and all that happened in the time of worship. And after the service, he lingered around for a while. I'd never seen this young man before. And as we began to talk together, he shared with me how that he was kind of new in the area, and that actually he had just taken a job in Tennessee and would be moving in about 4 weeks. But he wanted to be in a church where that he could plug into and just worship there for a while in preparation for his move, which was only 4 weeks away. And then he began to tell me, I'm struggling with God's call on my life. And I just sense that God may be calling me to ministry, but I don't know for sure. Is there anything that you can share with me that could be of help? Well, we talked for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then at the end of that conversation, I gave him the series of messages that I'd preached from the book of Jonah on Sunday mornings. And I gave it to him, and he took it, he listened to it, and he came back the next week, and we were talking, and he said, God really used that series of messages in my life to clarify the fact that God is calling me. And he said, I want to tell you what it was that really solidified it for me. He said, you were preaching through one of those messages, and you inadvertently used the name Joshua instead of Jonah. And when you did that on 3 or 4 different occasions, it was like God was singling me out, because this wasn't just for Jonah. This was for a young man named Joshua that was trying to run from the call of God. And he said, it's just like God called me by name in the ministry and solidified his call by use of that. Now think about what happened there, and I'll tell you the rest of the story in just a moment. But God took something that on my part was a mistake. That's something I didn't intend to say. But God took that and he used it for the good of a young man that was struggling with a call to ministry, and literally called him out by name. That's how amazing God is. And his sovereignty is so awesome that God can even take something that we think is a mistake, and he can use it for his glory to bring good into the lives of his people. I've been blessed by that so many times as I think back on that experience. Well, not long after I came here to be the president of Fruitland Baptist Bible College, I received an email from Joshua, and he told me that he had publicly announced his call into ministry. He'd surrendered to the call, and he sent me a video link to where I could hear his first sermon on YouTube. And excitedly, I clicked on that link and I listened to his very first sermon, and it was very well done. And it just reminds me through that experience of how God really is at work, and how that we know that he can take all things and work them together for the good of those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. That brings great encouragement into my life, and I hope that it will bring great encouragement into your life as you minister for him as well. God bless you, pastors, and your churches, and all the wonderful ministry that is taking place there in the Catawba River Baptist Association. God bless you. Have a great week as we serve him together.